My name's Imran Chughtai. I'll be talking about stop prompting, start managing, a new era for AI teams. So let me just begin. A little bit about myself. I'm doing a doctorate with regards to AI ethics, also working in a company called Research Collab Technologies. And we've released a product called Research Collab, where we've actually automated research processes. And this is used globally, and so there's been like lessons learned that we would like to share. I've been posting on LinkedIn, and you might have seen some of the posts. By all means, follow me on LinkedIn. You've got my link there, and I'll share this recording after the meeting. I've been using AI tools and agentic tools for quite a while. So even when Manus came out, I was using it, and I found it as an excellent solution. And so I used it to do different types of activities. And it was the first tool that came out, which was using the different AI LLMs from other providers, but it would actually just start using different tools, different services. And it was really the first kind of entry into agents that was easily used by other people. Then I also went to another solution, which was GenSpark. So I also tried this out, and I've been using this. I've been using Manus and GenSpark for over a year, and both of them are very, very good in their capabilities. But what we're going to be talking about is not really so much any of these type of tools, where you just give it a prompt and it will start doing the work. It's actually going into some more of the details. So what about setting up things like an agentic team? Okay, so it's moving from tools to teammates. So understanding the fundamental shift in artificial intelligence workflow. A little bit of background, just so everyone's up to speed. So this isn't just having a smart calculator where you're actually telling the tool exactly what to do. This is where you actually give it a high level goal, and then it tries to figure out the rest. Okay, so within agentic AI, you have reasoning, planning, and we'll see a little bit of that through this session as well. It also importantly uses external tools, and you'll see also that some of the newer ones where it's really evident in their kind of self-correcting. How does it actually work? I mentioned this previously very briefly. So you define a goal, it breaks that down into different subtasks, and it tries to figure out what are those subtasks. And then it goes about and tries to execute and run against different tools, tries to figure out how to solve a problem. If it comes across an issue, then it tries to look at the different options, and it also does a course correction. And then finally, it will give you the end result. Most people have been using the typical generative AI tools like ChatGPT and all of the others, but agentic AI is really about looking at the bigger picture. And I won't kind of go through it, but it's more about reactive versus proactive. The main pillars are that you've got the brain, where it actually breaks down the complex goal, and you can give it a complex problem, and then it figures out, okay, well, what are all the different tasks and steps that you need? And then it comes down to what are the actual tools that are available to it, and then what can it access to actually solve this problem? And then there's like some persistence of memory. So how does it actually remember and continue from previous history? So agentic AI, one of the kind of key things about agents is that they don't actually give up. So you can actually set them so they do give up, and that's something that we'll look into a little bit later. But the major thing is that they face a problem and they try to use whatever available resources to try to figure out a solution, look at the different options, and then actually evaluate those, and then go towards the correct option, correct solution. So it's really problem solving. Okay, so what we're going to be looking into is we'll touch on OpenClaw, but the focus is going to be on the other newer tools, which are Clip and Hermes, and we'll understand what the differences are between them, and we'll see a little quick demo of them. And then also just a mention of kind of Claude, which is one of the ones that I actually end up using. So Again, with the agents, you've got different agents where you can actually get them broken down into sub-agents. So you can have a main agent, and then that can actually go to a sub-agent. And so think of these sub-agents as specialists which are focusing on specific things. They're only there for a short period of time, and you actually give them very clear controls of what they're allowed to do and what they can't do. So one of the things that I actually also use, so within Claude, so there's something called Claude Code. And for that, that allows you to build solutions. Now, one of the very good things that Claude has also got, and a lot of the other AIs, OpenAIs, GPTs, they have a marketplace. Now, what you can actually do is that you can have different plugins and different solutions and have them complement what is already in there with Claude. So one of the things that I end up doing is that when I am working with one AI, and if it's something like Claude, I want to actually do a kind of a review, but I don't want to use Claude. And what I've actually found is that Codex from OpenAI does a very, very good job of actually cross-checking against what Claude is doing. And that is actually quite a recommended approach that I normally go for. You end up having to connect it to the OpenAI, but I think it's worth it because it does actually bring about some interesting points that Claude sometimes overlooks. And the good thing is that you can actually carry on doing your work, and Codex will actually come back with a report that you can then end up processing. Real world applications, we're starting to see more and more of this. So the thing is that you can actually get these new agentic tools connecting to your inbox. And so I actually got it to connect to my inbox. I gave it the emails, and it ended up kind of managing and organizing them. But the thing is, I was quite scared about what it was doing. But the good thing is that I didn't actually use it on my main account when I was testing this. And I think this is the thing that you have to be careful about. So make sure that you always try these things in a isolated or controlled area. The other thing it can do is actually look into things like your calendar and even your file system and help to organize that. And I've actually done that as well. So I can on LinkedIn, I even I shared a post, and it was about when I actually used Cowork to help to organize. So Claude Cowork to organize my machine's files and directories. And one of the things that I did actually notice is that it seemed like it worked and it organized them very well. But when I actually looked into the folders, I noticed that the destination folders were empty in some of them. And so you have to be very careful and make sure that you've got a backup of your files when you're trying these tools. They are at the early stage. Other thing is about hybrid teams. So you will see more and more of humans working with agents. And I think this is an optimal solution, really. And we'll talk about why a little bit later. And then also infrastructure. So if we've got time at the end of the session, I can show you one of the things that I kind of did where you can actually use Claude Cowork and actually analyze your infrastructure. And I've got an example to do with US. So if time permits. Okay, so the first one, so OpenClaw. So OpenClaw was the first kind of solution where it was, it had got 378, it's got 378,000 stars on GitHub, on Git. So what that means, it's actually very popular. And one of the things that it is good about it is that it runs on your hardware. You can actually give it control, allow it to actually do different things on your computer. And you can control it through lots of different communication methods like Telegram or WhatsApp. And so that is very, very powerful because it meant that you don't actually have to go to these online services like Manus and GenSpark like I'd been doing before. You can actually run this locally and then get it controlling your own machine. So it seemed like, oh, this is amazing. As a personal assistant, it can really help me do all the things without having to go out. But then one of the things that happened was that even though it was very, very popular, also it had lots of issues. So between January and February, there were security flaws. There were major critical flaws with the OpenClaw. And so it found over 30,000 administrator interfaces of OpenClaw on the internet. So there was no authentication enabled. So these were actually possible to see online. Also, it's got like a weak foundations. So when it comes to enterprise, there's been lots of different critical vulnerabilities and exploits that have been kind of documented. So there's things like the supply chain attack and then Maltbook breach that happened as well. So the problem was that you've got OpenClaw and you've got the ClawHub marketplace, and unfortunately, you had malicious people who had put these skills and code on this marketplace, and it was causing all sorts of different issues. And so that, from a security side, I tried it out, but then I stopped using it. So now we'll talk about Hermes. So Hermes is an alternative. It's slightly different to OpenClaw. I've been using it. Now, what it allows you to do, you can also use it to control different tools, use your file system, access the browser, and do other things. And you can also run it locally on your machine. So very similar to what you can do with OpenClaw. One of the things that is very good about it is that it's a solution where it's self-improving. So it actually ends up creating its own skills and improving them. So you might be chatting with it, and then it realizes, hold on, based on the things that we've been chatting about, I could create a skill for this. And so it would actually end up creating skills. So this has actually been skyrocketed, even though it came out in 2026, and it's actually overtaken OpenClaw as the most used AI agent globally. So I touched on it previously. So things like the self-improving. So you've got a self-improving, it actually runs, as you're using this Hermes, it actually ends up improving itself. Okay. So you might start using it from day one and you're facing kind of issues. And then by day 30, it's actually learned really, it understood how you're working, what you're doing, and all the different tools and your own personal requirements. And so it will be creating skills around those as well. Multi-platform, so it can run on different platforms. It doesn't require excessive amount of resources. And then it's also got lots of skills, and those skills are constantly updating and adding. I've mentioned in there as well. So it's currently got 189,000 stars as of today on Git. And so it's one of the most popular solutions that are out there on Git right now. So there's a lot of interest in this. Okay, so it gets around some of the things that I mentioned earlier about OpenClaw, where you've got things which are risky and malicious. So with Hermes, it's actually designed to be a bit more secure. It has some kind of better auditing inside it. Again, I mentioned about self-improving, this learning loop. So even though OpenClaw does have this kind of concept where you've got kind of dreaming and you've got this kind of bits of improvement, Hermes takes that further. There's better memory management as well, the way that when it actually remembers things. So one of the key issues with AI solutions is that over time you end up having this kind of memory and it stores it, and then you build something called this context, and that gets bigger and bigger and bigger. But as your context gets really large, then what happens is it starts forgetting some of the previous things. Hermes has different layers of memory management that handles that. And then the last one that I've noticed here is agent generated skills. So these are generally safer. Okay. And then the other one that we're going to look at is PaperClip. So PaperClip is another solution which is very popular. And the way to think about it is your team. So it's your orchestration of your virtual team. And so this allows you to have role, control, budgets, and then also auditing. Okay. And then you can actually get them working together. So you can actually have Hermes working as like an employee of your agentic team. So your paperclip has your org chart, and then Hermes can actually be one of the specialists which can access your computer and do other things that you grant it permissions for. Okay. And so the way it works is that you've got paperclip you could give it the goal, and then Hermes would be carrying out the different tasks, or you can get other agents, and then you have the information coming back via the dashboards. And so, as I kind of mentioned, over time, so when you're starting with it, you might kind of think, hold on, this isn't actually that good. But then over time, it starts kind of improving over this self-improvement. And so then I've just got a kind of comparison where you've got OpenClaw, PaperClip, Hermes Agent, and at the bottom, I've mentioned Claude Agents and Claude Agents. So even Claude and the other kind of AI solutions that are out there, they are all supporting agents. So even when you're doing queries, a lot of the things behind the scenes are using different tools and using this kind of agentic behavior. And if we've got time, we'll have a look at Claude Agents as well. Okay, so let's kind of quickly look at some of the demos. Okay, so the first one that I'm going to be looking at is related to I wanted to show a fitness app. And so we've got Paw Troopers, was a game that I created with my family. And so we've got like a fitness app. And so with that, I'll use that as the example. So I used Claude Design actually to design some of the screens. And so let's go to the next one. What was the prerequisite? So I kind of installed Claude Desktop, then I installed Paperclip, and then Hermes. And then if anyone's interested, you can message me afterwards and I can look into creating a installation video that shows how to get all of this up and running and then have them integrated. But we'll skip along. So this is your kind of first look at this is Paperclip. So the way it looks like is you've got like this kind of dashboard, and then on the left-hand side, you've got your navigation and your different projects. And so there you can see this Paw Troopers fitness app. And on the right-hand side, you can see you've got the different tasks, and we'll have a look at that in a second. So let's go through an example. Hopefully you'll be able to see it. Let me click on play. Now I'm going to be zooming through this, but what I'm going to be showing, so this is on Paperclip, and what I'll be doing is actually hiring and onboarding a marketing specialist. So as you can see, I've done it quite fast, but as you can see, I'm going in, I've selected a CEO. Okay. I chose the project. And so that project was for the Paw Troopers fitness app. And then I kind of said, okay, well, start. Okay. Now, as you can see at the bottom, what I actually did is I typed in another message, and it was, I want a new agent in Claude Sonnet 4.6. Now, the reason why it's called Sonnet 4.6 is that at this time, Opus 4.8 is out, and that is very, very good. But it's overkill for many tasks. So what's actually beneficial is to have another agent that works as a planner or works using Opus, and another one which is, so another one which would be the other agents. So here, what you can see on the screen is that we went through and it actually just created the agent. Okay, so we've got marketing specialist. It's created the agent. You can actually see the description, like a mini job description of what it's produced. Okay, and we're running this much quicker because otherwise it would normally take like 10 minutes or something. So here, what I've done here is that for this agent, I said your primary one is Sonnet 4.6 and Haiku 4.5, which is actually cheaper, is used as your cheaper model. And again, that also respects it. So now what we're going to do is assign some work to this marketing specialist. So you select it. Again, you give it some work, and I'm saying, okay, produce a new marketing plan. What you'll see is a dashboard where it'll be whirring away, and you can see this task. And again, I think we'll be skipping through from a time. Let's have a look. So we're just churning through, starting to put together the structure. And as you can see, it starts coming up with, okay, well, now it's asking me to confirm. But before I confirm, I want to have a look. What has it actually produced? So here's our 30-day marketing plan. Okay. So what it's actually done is it's used PaperClip, and it's used my Claude subscription, and it's completed this task. So that's the first demo. Let's have a look. For the next one, oh, this one's the same. Let's have a look. The next one, what I've got here is Hermes. So Hermes is another tool where you start up. So this is the Hermes desktop. And as you can see on the screen, you can see that you've got the chat, and you've got this different functionality, and then you've got your main window. So let's play it. So I've noted that this is the main chat area, and that's where you normally start from. And then you've got models and Kanban. So let's have a look at models. So here I've got Olama, and what I'm highlighting is a local model. It's called Gemma 4. And I've got that installed locally on the Mac where this was recorded. So in your chat, when you're chatting with Hermes, you just go through and you select the Gemma 4, and then I'm typing in, okay, what can you help me do? Something very, very simple. Okay. And so what it will end up doing is it will come back with the response. But what this is differently is that this is running fully on my local machine. So this is not using Claude, it's not using anything else. It's just using my local LLM. And it's actually saying, okay, well, you can do software development, productivity, and other things. Now I've asked it, can you write some sales content for me? And it's saying, yes, I can do that. So you use it like other LLMs. Now, one of the challenges is that you do have limitations with your local AI models. And we'll see that in one of the later demos. So now I've asked it to help me plan the sales pitch. So this will be it, because it will just keep on going on. So what I've tried to do is I've tried to focus on the core things that everyone's going to need to know. So here you could use it for doing sales pitch and marketing plans and other things. Okay, so that's that one. The other thing that you can do is in project management, you have something called Kanban. So famously with Trello and other solutions. So you have this kind of Kanban where you have a board. And so what Hermes can actually do is it can actually take your tasks and actually have them displayed inside a visual Kanban as well. And we'll see that in this demo. So again, you create the request. So you type in a new chat, and I've asked it to create a marketing plan for the Poor Troopers fitness game. And here, what it's done, so one of the things I did say is that add in the task into the Kanban. And so what is done here is created the tasks also into the Kanban, and you can see the details of it here. Just let me know if it's all making sense so far. I've tried not to make it too detailed. That's this demo done. The other interesting thing with the Hermes agent is that because it's running on my machine, I can give it different permissions that you wouldn't normally be able to give to other AI solutions. So one of the things that it can do is that it can use different types of services that are available to your computer. So I recorded this on my Mac, and that had services when I installed it, which allowed me to use Apple reminders. So let's go through an example to show you that. So here, asking Hermes, again, using the local, let me pause it here. So using the local AI model, Gemma 4, creating a 90-day marketing plan for the fitness app. And then afterwards, creating Apple reminder for 11 a.m. tomorrow to review. So we'll continue playing. Again, I tried to record these because otherwise it would have taken too much time. So again, here it came up with a pop-up asking for permissions to access the reminders. So here it says, okay, it's created the reminders, and it's saying, importantly, I'll pause it here. Importantly, it's saying, okay, it's created the marketing plan and it's also set the Apple reminders. Okay. And then we'll continue. But one of the things that I wanted to see was that, okay, you've said it said it's created the marketing plan. Where is it? Now, importantly, it's saying it can't find the marketing plan. So actually, it's actually fake. There wasn't a marketing plan that was saved. So now it's asking, should we generate it? And I said, okay. So this is something that you need to be careful about, because the AI had actually said, oh yeah, I've created the marketing plan and I've created a reminder. Whereas in actual fact, it didn't. Okay, I'll pause it here. Now, what it's actually done, what I'm showing you is a screenshot from my Apple reminders where the actual reminder has actually come over and across into the app. So you can see review 90-day marketing plan for Paul Trooper's fitness. And it was for 11 o'clock. So that was actually correct. So the integration actually worked correctly. It's produced the 90-day marketing roadmap. What else can it do? Now, if you click on Discover, then you can see the other skills that are there. So Apple Notes, you can make use of the reminders as we saw, but then other things, computer use, driving things on your computer. And there's lots and lots here. And again, good thing about Hermes is that it will keep on improving. And then these are the capabilities that I manually went through and enabled. So things like web search and other things. So again, it's under your kind of control if you want to enable or disable. That's that one done. Next, we're going to see PaperClip actually working with Hermes Agent. And we'll see a quick demo for this and I'll talk through it. So going back to PaperClip, you can see this is the dashboard screen. Again, you've got the projects on the left. Here's the org chart. So these are all of the agents. And in the bottom corner, I'll pause it here. So here you can see there's a Hermes agent here as well. Okay. And it's using whichever LLM AI model that I told it to use. So I'll continue it. So now what we're going to do is we've seen PaperClip working. Now we're going to see it again, but we're using multiple agents. So now I've asked it to review the Paul Trooper's fitness app because I've selected the project. I've assigned it to the CTO, one of the roles, and I've put in here, provide a critical review of the app using different skills of the team members. Okay. Importantly, I've set it to planning. Okay. I didn't want it to actually make changes afterwards. I wanted to make sure that it's just going through and understanding. So here we've assigned the task and it's assigned it to the CTO. You'll see in PaperClip that this is starting to work. So here it's showing that there's like 14 agents in the team and it's tried to put together the plan. So let's go through. So this is the plan that's produced. So as you can see, each of the different parts of the fitness app is actually broken it down and assigned the parts of the plan to the correct user, the agent. Here, we just had the Hermes agent being shown. So even things like backend calls or something that required the Hermes agent, that was actually assigned automatically. So all of this is automatically done. Now I've actually approved the plan. Now, one of the tips that I have for everyone is that when you are working with these agentic tools, make sure you don't forget to do the planning part. I think this is where a lot of the work, a lot of kind of issues can be solved. Okay, here you can see that you've got a number of different agents that are running. So as you can see from the counter at the top, that you've got 11 being shown. Okay, it's clicking through it quickly because otherwise the process would have taken a very long time. Okay, so I think it's done. Yeah, so this one's done. So what this was actually showing is, as a recap, we were actually creating a review, we were assigning it to the CTO, and then having that delegated to different team members. So do a review, we set it to plan, we then reviewed the plan, and then got each of the different team members to work on it. Okay, so the next one that I'll show you, again, this one would have taken quite a long time, but so this is like sped up and also edited just to make it easier to understand. So within Claude, when you install Claude, you also have Claude Code. Now, Claude Code can seem quite intimidating, quite difficult, and it just does take a little bit of time to get used to it. It means that you do have to do the work inside the command line, but once you get the hang of it, it's actually easier than you think. Okay, so let me show you how to use this concept called workflows. So here, okay, let me pause it. So what I've done here is that I've given it a plan. We're looking at the game Paw Troopers, and what I'm trying to get it to do is actually do a review of that, but using multiple different agents. Okay. And what I've clearly stated is that I wanted Sonnet, which is a cheaper agent than Opus. So that would be used for your finder and verifier agent. Okay. And then Opus, the more expensive one, would be used for synthesis. Okay. And so let me just start this going. The other thing that I didn't mention is that, okay, you've got the different agents being mentioned. So most of the work will be done through Sonnet, but then also we're setting a budget. So I've put in here 400K as in the kind of token usage. So you'll see that when it starts playing. So this was actually a different type of solution. So you go into Claude and you type in /workflows. And then what that allows you to see is when you've actually started the process, you'll be able to see the different agents like this. Okay. So it's broken the review of the game into different phases. Okay. So you've got find, verify, adjudicate, and synthesize. I think that was the last one. And here you can see that it's actually already spun up 17 different agents. And here, now look, so after 22 minutes, there's 17 different agents. And now, after 25 minutes, it's thinking, oh, you've got 59 agents. Okay, so let me just pause it here. So what this is actually doing is actually going through the different phases as it kind of ticks through. Okay, so each of the different agents is consuming some of the tokens. Now, because it's split across multiple different agents, you don't have the issues with regards to consuming all of the context. So it means that you can give little bits of work to individual agents, and it means that they can get on and do their work and then provide the results back, and then the next agent can work in parallel. Okay. So when it comes to planning, what happens is that it decides what are the tasks that you can work in parallel and what are the things that are dependent. So let's see here. So as we can see from the top, it's got 61 agents. Here, it's planning for 42, which would have been Sonnet. And so now we've gone to the next adjudicate and synthesize, and those would be using Opus, because this is effectively double checking, and we want to go for the stronger ones, even at that stage. Then it starts producing its report. So in total, there were 64 agents. This is the report that ends up producing. Now, it doesn't look very friendly, but in this kind of markdown format, the computer can actually understand it. Other agents will be able to understand it, but you can very easily get it to generate PDF or HTML or other formats. But what this is actually showing you is by using the concept of workflows within Claude Code, you can actually it will automatically spin up multiple different agents. You just have to be very, very careful because, like in my example that I just showed you, it was using 64 agents. Okay. And so it can end up consuming a lot. So you have to make sure that you put the budget controls. You can actually put things like maximum turns. You can also, make sure you could even go for Haiku instead of Sonnet. You could go for an even cheaper model. That's one of the things that's worth knowing. Okay, let's go to the next thing. Okay, so how do I end up using this in practice? So I've shown you Paperclip with the fitness app and everything else. And I used Paperclip. I tried it out and I found it to be very, very good. And I ended up finding it was useful because it allowed me to build the fitness app in a much shorter time period. However, what I noticed is that when I tried to use it with existing apps, all sorts of issues, and I found all sorts of problems. Now, even still, I'm using agentic teams. So with Paperclip, I've used different projects. Hermes also different types of projects. I'm using Hermes also as part of the sub-agents. So I'm typically using that as the intelligent agent. What I'm showing you here, and so this is one example of a setup that I've got where I have an orchestrator, which is an agent, and then you have multiple different agents underneath. Okay. So think of it from an enterprise application. You need to do multiple different things. You need to give it to different specialists. Now, even for our own product, a research collab, one of the things that I wanted to do was actually understand how secure is the platform? From a code quality, how is it performing? Do we have our documentation updated? Okay. And then even from a database and other aspects, what I've done is I've got my agentic team to actually understand all of that, and they end up producing a regular report. And those reports are provided to me, and then I share that with my kind of development team, and it's very, very useful. So if there's any kind of critical issues or any kind of issues, we're on top of them straight away. So we've got this kind of agentic team, which is constantly, it's also improving itself. And so, yeah, so for this one, just so everyone's aware, so I'm using Claude agents for this purely because I find Paperclip and Hermes still at an early stage. Okay, so I don't trust it enough when it comes to production systems where you've got thousands of people using it globally. Okay, so use cases. The things that you could actually try doing is that you could try using these agentic tools on your inbox and your scheduling. Okay, again, caution, be very careful about giving it your real email and your calendars. Try it out on something smaller and that you're willing to take a risk with. Okay, other things that you can use for agentic team. So we're also using it for finding out leads from the whole kind of perspective of pipeline management, sales management. And then also I mentioned at the end where it's like documentation and review and auditing. This can all happen autonomously as well. So what I found, like as I mentioned, I said that agentic solutions like Paperclip and Hermes, they're excellent. And I think that it's the way forward, but they're still at the early stage. So I think you're learning this and understanding this at a very good time because this area is still evolving. Is there any value in it? Well, yes, there is value in using agentic AI. Just be careful with when you get a response from it, and you have to be careful about, okay, well, if you want to go fully autonomous, then there's an issue where you could actually end up having lots of trouble by just trusting it blindly. So the kind of hard questions that we should all be asking is that who is accountable when an agent makes a costly mistake? Okay. Is it the AI company? Is it the development team? Is it the user? Or is it whoever set that up? Is it where you got the data from? Is it the customer? So these are all things that need to be thought through. Other questions: how do we maintain oversight without killing efficiency? What happens to human skill when agents do the work? Where do we draw the line on agent autonomy? So at what, we're saying, okay, we want to move things towards autonomous behavior, but then where should we be using humans? How do we audit decisions made by AI that we can't fully explain? And are we building tools and or dependencies? So the things that I've seen is that you have to be careful with things like runaway spend. So it's very easy, as we saw, that you can spin up these different agents and they can end up having you can have hundreds of agents running, and then your bill will be huge. And so these are all things that you just have to be very, very careful, and you have to put the controls in place when you're experimenting or using these. Okay. Other things about compound risk. So again, you have to be very careful with these agents because they are evolving and they are improving, and you have to stay on top of it. And so once you have these agents there, you have to make sure that they're monitored and observed and carefully audited. And then the last one I've got in there is limited results. So the thing is, you have to be careful. So the AI, you could have an AI which will be giving you poor responses, but then it'll just do it very, very quickly. So you have to be very careful. So here, what I've got here. So yeah, so as part of our company, Research Lab Technologies, one of the things that I'll show here is that when you're looking at different use cases, it could be financial services, healthcare, public sector, or professional services. Now, if it's something like financial services, you can look at onboarding or know your customer. And then there's like a manual process. What about claims triage? Okay. So again, you can go from days to minutes. Now, one of the important thing to note is that you have to be careful about how autonomous do you want this to be. You can have it so it's fully autonomous, or you can have it where you've got people in the loop. And my kind of take, because I'm looking into all the autonomous behavior, I really think that humans do need to stay in the loop, but you have to have them in the correct place. And then you have like a win-win. So those are all of the things that I wanted to share. Thank you for being patient and listening. So if you want to get in contact with me, by all means, message me, ping me on LinkedIn. If you're interested to know more about how we can help, contact us via Research Lab Technologies on the researchlabtech.com. You can also try out our free research agent and go to researchlab.ai, and you'll be able to see automated platform there that helps the end-to-end research process. Those are the things that I wanted to share. So with that, thank you very much.